this newscast. Marianne?
John, police tonight say they're close to filing charges of child abuse in the case of a southwest suburban preschool. But tonight, parents rallied in support of that school's operator. Here's Tim Ryan.
These parents and kids tonight demanded the police and the press back off. They refused to believe stories of child abuse in spite of medical evidence of abuse of more than a dozen kids. Both preschools are operated by a woman named Sandy Fabiano.
We're here to support Sandy. She's had this preschool for over 3 years. My little guy's been here for 2 years, and I couldn't ask for better health care. She's been dedicated to these children.
For a week, police have been investigating charges that young girls were sexually molested at the Mother Goose and the Kid Stop preschools. Police and social workers interviewed 141 children enrolled at both of the daycare centers. But more than a dozen parents refused to cooperate with the investigation. They refused to bring in their children for interviews or physical exams. Tonight, police confirmed charges are pending against one person connected with both schools. Tomorrow, police will meet with the state's attorney's office.
The paperwork involved in something like this is just enormous. So it will be an assessment meeting sometime tomorrow and probably a day of paperwork assembly. And once that is done, then there will be an arrest.
The Mother Goose School has been closed because of a technical problem with its state license. But the Kid Stop remains open for business, although police are urging the state to close it down as well. Tim Ryan, Channel 7 Eyewitness News.
And tonight, police in Gary have arrested a suspect in the abduction of a 5-year-old girl who'd been missing since Saturday. Authorities discovered Rosemary Williams alive late this afternoon at the apartment of 32-year-old Robert Hart. Police arrested Hart, and tonight he's at the Crown Point, Indiana lockup. Detectives were led into the apartment by Hart's landlord.
They found the girl in there, and they found Mr. Hart. Mr. Hart had the girl up inside the rafters of the apartment, apparently some type of a crawl space.
Where was he?
He was up there with her.
Little Rosemary is listed in stable condition in Methodist Hospital tonight in Gary. Doctors say there are signs of physical abuse. Charges are expected to be filed tomorrow against Hart, who incidentally was known to the family.
Marianne, the state Democratic Unity fundraiser was held in Chicago tonight, and even though some powerful local Democrats didn't show up, 3 presidential candidates did. Our Hugh Hill is also there, and he has this live report. Hugh?
Well, John, surprisingly, I must say that Unity had a great deal of evidence here tonight at the State Central Committee Democratic Unity Party, even though the chairman of the Cook County Central Committee never showed up and didn't buy tickets to this event. Unity began tonight with the arrival of the mayor of Chicago.
His Honor the Mayor, Harold Washington.
The Democratic Unity Party included the man who won the most recent election, Mayor Harold Washington. He came to provide witness that the Democrats are in fact united. In the audience were Paul Simon, Jesse Jackson, Richard M. Daley, Alan Dixon, Neil Hartigan, and from Delaware, Senator Joseph Biden. But there was no Edward Verdoliak, the chairman of the Cook County Party. He didn't come here. He didn't buy any tickets. But in a Unity news conference tonight, staged by State Chairman Vince DiMuzio, presidential candidates Jesse Jackson and Paul Simon made a joint appearance. Simon said he agrees with Senator Biden that the presidential race will probably be over before the Illinois primary. Jesse Jackson disagreed.
Anybody that would become faint because they did not win the South and then give up on the other 2/3 of the delegates really did not have the fire in their belly at the very outset.
In an ongoing spirit of unity tonight, the first speaker was Mayor Harold Washington.
But all is not lost. The ineptness of the opposition party gives us a golden chance to rejuvenate ourselves. They've missed the boat.
But in the final analysis, government can be no more than a catalyst. We Democrats have to come to grips with that.
Tonight, the speaker, who is just concluding now, is Paul Simon, who is also a candidate for President of the United States. And tonight, the only person missing was Edward Doliak, who will have a party later on this month for himself. This is Hugh Hill live at the Hyatt Regency. Back to you in the studio.
Okay, thank you, Hugh. Eyewitness News has learned this evening that two former aldermen, Marion Humes of the 8th Ward and Perry Hutchinson of the 9th, are expected to be indicted this week. They're among as many as 8 current or former government officials who will face trial as a result of the Operation Incubator probe of corruption. Others who might be indicted include John Adams, Chicago's former deputy revenue director, Clarence McFarlane, former aide to Mayor Washington, and Morgan Finley, the present clerk of the circuit court. Already indicted are former 20th Ward Alderman Clifford Kelly, who's pleaded guilty to taking bribes, and former 27th Ward Alderman Wallace Davis, who's in jail awaiting trial.
In Washington, in the Iran-Contra hearings, former National Security Advisor Robert McFarlane took the stand and testified before panel members that he agreed to choose which American hostage would be freed in exchange for an arms shipment to Iran. He said it was hoped the sale of arms would bring release for all 7 Americans held hostage, but after the sale, the deal was changed.
Were you asked to play God and choose one hostage?
Yes. And I asked for Mr. Buckley.
83.
It was later learned William Buckley died in captivity, and McFarlane chose Benjamin Weir instead. Also, as expected, McFarlane said he was told by Colonel Oliver North that the president knew of and had approved the channeling of profits from those arms sales to the Contra rebels. Maria?
Alleged former Nazi Gestapo chief Klaus Barbie went on trial today in the city where he was known as the Butcher of Lyon. Barbie's accused of torturing and deporting Jews and resistance fighters from 1942 to 1944. Before a standing room-only crowd, Barbie, in handcuffs, laughed and insisted his name is Klaus Altman. To murder a federal prosecutor and a witness. It's another example that the cocaine trade in Chicago is as violent as it is lucrative. Jay Levine joins us tonight with the first of a series of reports on Cocaine Incorporated.
Marianne, John, it is a multi-billion-dollar industry ruthlessly controlled worldwide by a handful of Colombian families who make as much money as the very biggest U.S. corporations, with the generals in Colombia and Colombian-born lieutenants here in Chicago. What we see on the streets of Chicago starts in places like Santa Marta, Colombia, and that's where our story begins.
General Miguel Gomez Padilla has just taken command of Colombia's 1,800-man narcotics police. Soon, he may have a price on his head, a bounty, paid by Colombian drug traffickers who routinely kill cops they can't buy. Using helicopters purchased with help from the United States and poorly paid but highly motivated officers, General Gomez is out to do to cocaine production what others before him did to Santa Marta gold, the crown jewel of marijuana crops. This region used to supply nearly half the marijuana entering the United States. Not anymore. But the cost has been high, and not only in dollars. The colonel in charge of that operation, Jaime Ramirez, is now dead. His execution carried out by assassins who were paid $500,000. In contrast to traffickers who spend millions to protect their lucrative industry, these officers earn $50 a week.
The khaki uniforms, the military precision, the constant maneuvers leave little doubt that this is war against a rich, powerful, violent class known here as the narcotraficantes, who rake in billion-dollar profits and kill anyone. Judges, police, journalists, elected officials, anyone who stands in their way.
The elements of violence here are tremendous, and they go beyond what we would ever experience in Chicago.
We can't tell you who this man is or even exactly what he does, but growing up in Evanston didn't prepare him for life in a country where 57 judges have been murdered for refusing traffickers' payoffs and ignoring their threats, where armored cars are routine, police stations are armed camps, the U.S. Embassy a fortress, following threats to kill 5 Americans for every Colombian extradited to face drug charges in the U.S.
It's the norm for you to travel around with hordes of gunmen around you, no matter where you're going, and to keep gunmen around your place of residence at all times.
Here in the Guajira Desert at the northernmost tip of South America, the general's men are dynamiting secret airstrips used by planes loaded with cocaine destined for the United States. The irony is, the greater the general's success, the greater the personal risk.
Tengo un compromiso.
I have an obligation to my profession. I have an obligation to my country. I have an obligation to my family. I have an obligation to humanity.
Some call this a waste of time, and even the Colombians admit it's merely a delaying tactic. For even before the smoke clears, poor Indians paid by rich traffickers are gathering to repair or replace the airstrips. The last time a kingpin like Pablo Escobar was arrested, the investigating officers were murdered, the courthouse and records torched.
Could someone like Escobar or Ochoa be held and convicted here?
The answer is quite possibly, probably no.
Judges may be faced with just a terrible choice, because somebody walks up and says, here's 10,000 or 50,000 or whatever it is, U.S. dollars, but if you don't take it, I'm going to kill your wife.
That was the U.S. ambassador to Colombia. Tomorrow we'll take you to Medellin, where a dozen murders a day is not unusual. As we examine why, some fear that it's only a matter of time before, in the words of one veteran Chicago narcotics officer, we too start finding Colombians laying all over the streets with bullet holes in them. John, Marianne?
Thank you, Jay. Steve Deschler's up next with a look at the weather, and later, the world-class models that star in Chicago's newest magazine.
The motorhome, and you can choose your own MaxiCare doctor. A doctor who will know you and who you can see as often as you need without ever paying a deductible or filling out any forms. MaxiCare lets you pick a doctor you feel comfortable with.
Very good, very good. Well done.
There is still a place where the air is clean and fresh, where water is pure, protected by nature deep underground, where craftsmen take no shortcuts. Here,
some of the aspirin-related medicines can be very helpful.
What can you do to prevent getting it?
Be careful about exercises like running.
Dr. Bruce Dan reports on how to cope with the pain of arthritis. Tomorrow at 4 on Eyewitness News.
Revisit the days of the wild prairie at the Chicago Academy of Sciences.